All right, Tim, get started.
Welcome to Chapter Connect. I'm your host, Dr. Tim Radke, Vice President for Chapters at the Explorers Club. Today, I'll be introducing you to the Pacific Northwest chapter, which is chaired by John All. Following everybody's brief presentation, we ask you to join in the discussion by submitting your questions to Ann Passer via the chat room, who will then direct the questions to each of our participants. First, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Megan Cook, who will tell you a little bit about the chapter and their website. Megan, welcome to Chapter Connect.
Thank you, Tim. Hi, everyone. I'm so pleased to be joining you tonight and to represent the Pacific Northwest chapter here. I'm speaking to you from Friday Harbor, Washington, which is the traditional home of the Coast Salish people. So I'd like to first recognize the Sook, Sanish, Samish, Salish, Semiahmoo, Songhees, and Lummi peoples who have been the stewards of this land, and I thank them for it. When traveling is the thing we can all do again, I hope you'll come out and visit the Pacific Northwest chapter, which represents Washington State, Oregon, and Idaho. We are a combined force there of explorers of all types of different interests, and I just love the way that this community brings us all together. I've been involved in the Explorers Club since 2012 and in the chapter here for the last 4 years. One of the main efforts we've been up to lately is working on getting the communication presence and the communication elements to tie our members and interested members together. That has involved building out a new website and trying to refresh our social media presence. So I want to share some of what we've been doing there with you. If you want to visit us at explorersclubpnw.com, you can see our chapter's web presence with just some basics about the club, introducing you to some of the activities that we have coming up, and most importantly, ways to get in touch with other explorers. There's a lot of community and a lot of email conversation that happens back and forth. Typically, we plan our annual events in the fall of a chapter meeting. And while this year has not had the events that we typically hope, often there are more. If you check out our members, we've also started to create some features, not only of those that are involved in leadership roles in the chapter, like our current chapter president, John All, who will be joining us in just a little bit, but also other members with a little dash of their stories. One of the things we'd like to do, and I know is an active effort within the club in a larger way, is create a featured speakers list where we can feature not only our really esteemed explorers that live in these areas, but also some of our younger members, and to pass those opportunities around throughout the community. So that's a goal. We are just really proud to have a presence up and on the website in general. So we hope you'll check us out. Again, that's Explorers Club PNW for PacificNorthwest.com. As far as my work, I'm happy to introduce you to a little bit of what I do as well. I'm a deep ocean explorer with the Ocean Exploration Trust team, founded by Dr. Ballard, one of our famous members. This year, we are just wrapping up about 4.5 months of at-sea expeditions. We're really proud of the way our team has come together in order to safely be able to do excursions during the 2020 year. What you're watching right now is the live feed. The ship is currently mapping the seafloor off the Southern California borderlands. So this is incoming live data revealing the shape of our planet and the landscapes underneath the water. It's been a challenging year for us, but we were really proud to have ROV-based operations, so remote exploration and scientific sampling, as well as seafloor mapping expeditions happen with appropriate social distance quarantine and testing of our teams and getting them out into the field. So no matter what those challenges are, we made it happen. So this is the Nautilus Live web presence. There I manage the education partnerships and programs, broadening the inclusion of future explorers in our next generation. So I'd encourage you to check that out, and I'm always happy to answer any questions. If you want to see the kinds of expeditions we ran this year, you can check out the expedition tab, which will show you the different topics. Certainly, if you are an educator or if you are a parent at home with students learning about the world and wanting to take a virtual trip to the deep sea, I encourage you to check out all of our education resources as well. So thanks for the chance to share with you and talk a little bit about the chapter. It really is a pleasure to feel connected even here on the far coast away from chapter headquarters and to be tied in with this community. So back to you, Tim.
Thank you, Megan. Great presentation. Next, I have the pleasure of introducing to you Erden Eruc. Erden is a medalist with the club, and he also has the distinction of having circumnavigated the globe over 5 years using only human power, which is quite an amazing feat. Erden, welcome to Chapter Connect.
Thank you for the introduction, Tim. I would like to share my screen now. Here we are. Is everybody able to see my screen?
There we go.
Yeah, good. I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity. I will tell you a little bit about what I have done and what I intend to do. My website is Danaher.com, and nonprofit website is aroundandover.org if you want to follow through. I had a dream of going around the world by human power starting in '97, and I wanted to convey this experience with others and create value for society. Circumnavigation is a journey that starts and ends at the same place, travels generally around the world in the same direction, and goes through at least one pair of antipodal points. To support this journey and to serve the goals, we set up this nonprofit Around and Over based in Seattle and raised over $100,000 for educational projects so far. The journey took place between 2007 and 2012, starting in California, proceeding westward generally, and finishing at Bodega Bay where I had started. You will notice that I marked the highest summits on 6 different continents here. These are to be reached by human power and climbed in memory of my friend Göran Kropp, whom I lost while rock climbing together. He had bicycled from Sweden to Nepal in '96 to climb Everest, and he was known for that. So in 2003, I bicycled up to Alaska, climbed McKinley, and then during my circumnavigation, I climbed Kosciuszko in Kilimanjaro, Everest, Elbrus, and Aconcagua remain on my to-do list. So the distances are immense. It was such a big goal that I had to travel around the world in leaps and bounds, westbound, to get back to where I started. That green line is a great circle that I averaged during my journey. We did at least squares approximation to fit a great circle onto my route there. I used a rowboat, sea kayak, mostly a bicycle across continents, walked north to south across Papua New Guinea, across tropical jungles, and on 2 occasions I used a dugout canoe to cross these river mouths. I became an accidental scientist as well when I documented a laughing gull 3,000 nautical miles offshore away from Baja and Mexican shores where they normally roam. The journey required that I had to break 14 Guinness World Records, it turned out. So had to go to London to receive a few of those in person. And the Explorers Club was kind to acknowledge my journey in their 2013 ECAD. It was an honor to share the stage with James Cameron and Chris Nicola and late Senator John Glenn, fellow award recipients. Since then, I've been a delivery captain, big yacht racer, and sailing instructor. I have established relationships with Ocean Recovery Alliance and 5 Gyres and Ocean Voyages Institute, all of whom deal with plastics problem in our oceans. So the environment remains a big concern for me. It's my playground. It's where I make a living. And the nonprofit Around and Over will continue to raise awareness in all of these areas. My next step in the Six Summits project will be to go to Everest. To do that, I will start from Gig Harbor, get down to probably Eureka, California, and launch from there to mainland China. That in itself will establish 6 Guinness World Records, advancing some of my own records. Then I'll bicycle to Tibet to climb Everest, keep going west. I will have the opportunity to talk about how I manage my own plastics garbage, all the garbage that I may encounter at sea, how I often catch more garbage than fish if I try, and I will be able to be the voice for the creatures that are suffering due to human impact out there on the oceans. We as humanity dump about 8 million tons of plastic garbage into our oceans at the pace of 1 garbage truck load every minute. And all of this plastic, once in the water, doesn't disappear. Some may sink, but a lot breaks down, or they just wash up on the windward shores of all land masses. This is the morning of July 5th in Ocean Shores, Washington, just west of where I live here. And that gives you a different perspective on patriotism. So we really need to change our perspective and how we see the world and how we behave. The latest pandemic has not helped. We are generating single-use items in addition to all the bottles and everything else that the coffee cups in the morning that we consume and generate trash. We are also now generating these masks and PPEs and all the other medical items that go with the battle with pandemic. Plastics is an addiction. And of course, we're not even talking about the number of cigarette butts that end up in our oceans. That's a whole different problem in itself. I want to be part of the solution. So the Ocean Recovery Alliance has a few initiatives. One of them is an app where the more people use this, the more effective it gets. Global Alert is a tool where we can tag trash sites to alert stakeholders in the region to go and carry out cleanup missions. So a Rotary Club or the Explorers Club chapter or the Boy Scouts in that area can go and clean up a beach, for example. So that same plastic debris does not end up back in the ocean. That's fighting it at the back end. The more users, the more effective this becomes. There is the Plastic Disclosure Project that works with corporations to find snapshots, to determine snapshots of plastic usage in each corporation. Then after, say, a year of managing their plastic consumption, they can come back and compare point A to point B and see how successful they were in reducing their plastic usage. So that is another program they have going. Using dirty plastic as a 10% cement aggregate is a program that is being put to use right now in Costa Rica as a development project. So if this is successful, then using all of our plastic production worldwide is about 340 million tons. So that is only 2.5% of the concrete demand. So if we could actually bury this plastic as it is, as dirty as it is, without having to sort into concrete itself as an aggregate, then we are going to find a way to hide it, if you will. So all of this plastic may end up in a cinder block. The equivalent of these 10 plastic bottles is a couple handfuls in the pile there. It becomes part of that cinder block and goes away. Ocean Voyages Institute is another organization that I mentioned. They tag ghost nets and other debris with satellite trackers and then go pick them up, have a mission. This past summer, they picked up 100 tons of plastic debris. So I will be taking beacons with me to tracking beacons that I can use to tag such debris if I come across any. So I'll be a vessel of opportunity when I am on my row on the Pacific. So talking about microplastics and how our clothing, one pile jacket in a wash could release 250,000 microfibers. That is a huge number. That's going to then require perhaps modifying our washing machines to capture it. Microbeads have been a big problem in scrubs and cosmetic industry. So action was taken against them and to ban it. So the Microbead Free Waters Act is one of those. Tire dust is another. All of these plastic, once they end up in the water, they become attracted to persistent organic pollutants. So they end up in the food chain, and these persistent chemicals like PCBs and DDT, everything ends up in the top predators, the apex predator. Humans end up with the major load of this. So we test positive for all these chemicals. It ends up in our system, in our bodies, and perhaps that's why cancer is becoming such a big problem in our bodies now, in the population. The big elephant in the room is population. There's a huge, immense pressure on the resources that Earth provides. In 1900, we were 1.6 billion. Today, about 8 billion, and by 2050 we will be 10 billion, and only perhaps 10% of this population is living a first world lifestyle, and everybody wants to and deserves such a lifestyle too. And we have already made a mess of our environment. Imagine everyone living the same style. We do not have another planet, and we have to deal with this problem somehow. So throughout my journeys, I will be leading by example, if you will, talking about these ideas and trying to create a different, provide a different perspective, and trying to create a mindset that we need to rethink our choices and consider recycling as the last option. As humanity, we can be stewards of this earth, or we can be the pest that kills its host. So I think we are better than how we have behaved so far. We cannot afford to kill our host. So that is my mission, to be able to communicate that concern and to communicate the solutions that are being provided as well. I provided a few websites here, and I hope that everyone can benefit from this. Thank you.
Erden, thank you very much. You might want to turn off your area of screen sharing. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the work you're doing and for continuing to raise everyone's awareness about the state of our oceans, which is just abysmal. It's just horrendous. Next, I have the pleasure of introducing you to Captain Lynn Danaher. In addition to being an explorer, Lynn has served for recently.
I came in late, so can I go ahead and jump in?
Well, we were going to put you last, John. We had to redo the order.
Well, but I wanted to introduce the chapter a little bit, unless Lynn did that already.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So let's go with this. Can y'all see? What do y'all see? Do y'all see the logo?
Yes.
Okay. So just kind of a little background. Again, we're the Pacific Northwest chapter. First of all, I apologize for being slightly late. Unfortunately, as a trial attorney, the judge has more control over your time than you do. So, and so basically with our chapter, we're 3 states. We're Idaho, Washington, and Oregon. And so our logo, we just recently created a logo. We created a new website. Megan will talk a little bit about that. We've got a lot of new outreach things going on that Juard's going to discuss. Lynn will talk a little bit about some of the past and how we've grown and so forth. In addition to, they'll be talking about their own projects. And but our logo sort of encapsulates the 3 parts, 3 states that we want to do. So if you'll notice, there's a big tall tree, and so that's supposed to represent the forests of Idaho. Of course, we have trees in Washington too, but we let them have the tree. The mountain is Mount Hood, and so that represents Oregon, and then the orca is for Washington. And that's been one of the key things I've been trying to do since I've been chair, is find ways to integrate the three groups. We've been holding our annual luncheons in Seattle. We've been trying to do something in Portland, and again, sort of begin growing some of our linkages with people that are a little further away from Seattle. Unfortunately, COVID has stopped a lot of that. So basically today will be a discussion again about the things that different people in our chapter are doing, but also how we're trying to kind of revitalize and modernize the chapter as we more and more turn to these digital means of communication. So I just wanted to throw that little blurb out there to introduce everybody to everything. And so now, Tim, sorry to step on your toes there.
No problem. No problem. Lynn, well, welcome.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can do this. I can't see myself even, so I'm hoping.
Yeah, you've gone dark.
I know. So let me see if this goes up. Share screen. Your screen.
You're not coming through, unfortunately.
I know. Hang on. Not sure why. I had it all. Oh, did you see it?
There you
see
go.
it now?
Yes.
All right. Terrific. Thank you so much for everyone for your patience. And I'm going to hit slideshow now. Hopefully. I think we should be good to go. Let's see. Can you see it?
It's coming up with those bars once again.
The bars?
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah, it's not really, it's not good, unfortunately.
I'm
Kevin,
so
can you assist in some way, Kevin?
Unfortunately, can't, Tim. I haven't received the
I mean,
funds.
we went through all this before, and that's why I'm, you are screen sharing, stop share. I'm going to stop share, and I'll go back again.
Yeah.
How's that? How's that? Share. See if I can. Trevor, I needed you.
Just go to presentation view and see if that'll let you share it now.
Okay. All right. Can you see it?
Yes.
Is it okay? Can you see it now?
See if you can advance it.
Okay. Good.
No, it didn't advance to the next slide.
It's not advancing.
No.
I'm so sorry, everyone. Well, I'll tell you what I'll tell you then. What do you see? What do you guys see?
Just the front page of your presentation.
Okay, maybe it's, anyway, I've served as on the board of directors for 6 years. I was the Pacific Northwest chapter chair for 2 years. And now you've really fouled me up because I was going to just narrate my slideshow, but that's okay. And I think this is terrific that these chapters are able to get together, because I always felt throughout my whole tenure at the board, on the board, and throughout the time I've spent at the Explorers Club, is that the chapters are extremely vital to maintaining this organization. And so I'm really appreciative of this Chapter Connect program during the time of COVID, so we can stay in touch. I think it's, I really give a shout out to Kevin and Ann and Tim for putting this together, because I can't emphasize how important it is to stay connected. And so since I've retired from the board after my 6 years, I was termed out actually, I ended up with the staying on for the headquarters renovation committee, because I've been doing that for the last 4 years. I have an intimate relationship with the building, every floor, in the basement, all the way up. So I know a lot about the building, and I'm really proud to serve on that committee. I'm also serving on the nomination committee with Dawn, which is terrific. And for 3 years, this is our 3rd year. So he's an amazing asset. Anyway, primarily what I'm over here on Kauai. I'm still the founder and president of the Pacific Islands Research Institute. And I have this fabulous slideshow that I was going to share.
Actually,
with you.
Lynn, I'm gonna interrupt for a minute because Marlis is suggesting that you select which page you want to share. Don't share your entire screen. And let's just give it another shot before we
All right.
pass up on it.
All right. Let me see. I'll just go to there. Let's see. Share. Okay. All right. This one. I have these, for some reason, I have 3. Thanks everyone for being so patient.
Well, we know you have a great presentation coming, so we don't want to miss it.
Okay. I'm going to go to end, and then I'm going to come back in again. And so can you see that? Can you see anything?
Well, that still is the board rather
Not
than
yet.
Okay.
Presentation view.
Okay, it's coming up now.
Try advancing one
Okay,
more
so
time.
we see a slide.
See the film festival?
So that's the third slide down. So go down to the third one.
Yeah, go to the next slide. No, it's not advancing.
It's not
Can you
advanced.
can you move your browser to where it says number 3 and number 4 on the left-hand side?
Yeah, can you just click on 3?
I don't, are you listening? Hang on, I'm going to stop this. I got a video loading. Maybe that's the problem, is I have a video and it might be just too big. That might be the problem. So can you see anything? What are you seeing?
I'm seeing slide 2. After serving on the board of directors for 6 years, etc.
Okay, that's it. Okay.
That's it. And when there's a sidebar that has the slides on it.
Okay. But it's not, see, all I'm seeing is a full screen view. So I don't know. So I don't know what to do. Anyway. So, okay. I don't mean to take up everyone's time with this. And I'm not sure why.
Then we're going to have you come on separately another time to show those slides, okay?
Okay, because I have seven, anyway, I have organized and participated in multiple flag expeditions throughout Oceania, and that's what the slideshow is about. We've made some pretty extraordinary discoveries, which I wanted to share. And we've done 7 flag expeditions in Oceania, Papua New Guinea, 2 in Raivavai and the Australs, 1 in Easter Island, 1 in the Marquesas, and 2 in Micronesia. And we're planning another one in Micronesia, and we're planning one at Pitcairn in the south east of Mangareva and just a bit northwest of Easter Island. So we'll be doing that probably in the next, within the next 2 years. And so the other thing that's wonderful is that the Friday Harbor Film Festival, its 8th showing this year, was the 8th annual Friday Harbor Film Festival. It was started when I was still the chapter chair. And we always had an explorer's piece in that documentary film festival. And Megan participated, Dawn's been coming, Erden's been there. So it's been pretty wonderful. And this year we went 100% virtual. So we got the virtual thing down this year. So our 8th annual was all virtual. And I recommend anybody that's interested, go to fhff.org. That's Friday Harbor Film Festival, fhff.org. Check out the lineup that we had this year. It was extraordinary. And we had, in fact, as an Explorers Club member, won the best feature this year, which I'm super excited about. It's called, Trevor, what's it called? Love is the Way.
Love is the Way by
Yeah,
Kristen Gates
Kristen-
and Jeremy Lazelle.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, that won the best film this year. So I was thrilled that an Explorers Club member won our best film this year at the Friday Harbor Film Festival. So I'm happy to field any questions about any of our upcoming expeditions to Namandal in Micronesia. That's actually going to be a very small, kind of intimate expedition, kayaking amongst the ruins of Namandal, looking for freshwater sources that I am confident are there. And then the other one that we've got coming up is to Pitcairn. We've been invited by the Pitcairn Islanders themselves to actually go to Pitcairn and excavate the bones of the mutineers, because no one has been able to find, there's only one grave they know of, and there were about a dozen men that were killed during the big kerfluffle that they had after they arrived, and no one knows where they're buried. So we're going to be going there with forensic anthropologists and doing DNA studies and on the skeletal remains. And they have invited us specifically because they trust us. They're very, very, very fussy about who visits Pitcairn and does research. So we're really deeply honored by the Islanders themselves. And so we'll be doing that probably, we hope, in 21 sometime. And so anyway, we've already several people that have traveled with us and explored with us before on other expeditions have already signed up. So I'm really excited about that upcoming expedition too. And that's all I can think of right now. Thank you so much. I really would like to field any questions anyone might have. So please send them to Anne.
Thank you so much. And we'll have questions at the end. And also, I'd like to invite you up. Everybody wants to see your images. I know I certainly do. And I have an offer for you. Our San Diego chapter is probably going to be presenting sometime in January, and we'd love to have you join our presentation once we get all the bugs worked out.
Okay, I'm sure I can get it worked out. I don't know why I'm having trouble, but oh well. So
it could be that video downloading. That could very well.
I have one video in it, and it could be just too big a file.
Yeah.
Could be it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you, Tim. I'd love to.
Great. We'll have you. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Trevor Wallace. Trevor is our Vice President for Research and Education, who's overseeing the Discovery grants as well as other student grants. So Trevor, welcome to Chapter Connect.
Thanks so much for having me. I have been told my connection is not great and that my video lags, so you can ignore my face and just listen to my voice. I'm also on the island of Kauai on the other side of Lynn. And although we have a very beautiful location to be in, our connection and our AP is not the best. But I really love that Megan did a land recognition, and I would like to do the same of the Kanaka Maoli, the indigenous Hawaiians that land we're on. Like Tim said, I am the Vice President of Research and Education at the club. We have 7 different grant programs, including our new Discovery grants. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I'm looking forward to the discussion portion. If anybody has any questions about that program, I would love to answer them. I know I would love to demystify the application process. And I will say that it is a lengthy application. It has a pre-application, which is sort of basic Google form. But one of the main differences between our Discovery grants and other grants that we offer is that there is a video statement. And the committee that I run, that we bring together all of these applications to then bring to Discovery, is mostly looking at the scientific background. The video statement is more important for once it gets to the Discovery execs, and happy to answer more questions about that. I'm excited to hijack this Pacific Northwest Chapter Connect because I spent 3 years living in Port Townsend, Washington as a teenager, and I think there's some amazing members that you have as part of this chapter, and I would love to get you all more involved in grants. for this year, we typically fund about 50 young explorers through our exploration fund. Unfortunately, this year has been financially difficult for the club. This typically comes out of our operation budget of about $50,000. And it has been really difficult to come up with these funds. So if anyone has any ideas, if anyone would like to support the exploration fund this year, I have designed a specific initiative focusing on local, indigenous, and understudied areas. So moreover, expeditions that can be done in our own backyard during COVID when so much is unpredictable. And then I also want to give a little bit of an update to the Explorers Club 50, which I'm a member of that committee as well, humbly serving as a volunteer with over 300 submissions, an incredible group of people that we've all been trying to make decisions and narrow it down, and we are very close. In January, we will be announcing the 50 with a broad press release highlighting these amazing explorers, but I think we're all going to be really, really proud of those who were chosen. And I speak for myself in saying that some of these decisions were incredibly difficult. I think it would have been very easy to have highlighted all of these nominations. So thank you so much for inviting me, and looking forward to the.
Thank you, Trevor. Next, I'm going to introduce you to Don Chenoweth. Don, among other things, is on the nominating committee for the board of directors, along with Lynn. Don, welcome.
Thank you. I thought I'd take a minute and are you seeing me? I'm not, let's see. Do I share screen? What do I do here? I took it off mute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. If you're just going to talk, you don't have any slides or anything?
No.
No, if you're just going to talk, just talk and you'll come
Okay.
up.
What I thought I'd do is share a little bit of the status of the nominating committee and sort of what we've been up to. I've been involved in the committee with Lynn for the last 3 years, and the first year was a pretty traditional, I think, kind of approach. Last year, the committee created a structure around which we could then go out and get nominations for the board. And that structure had some timeframes. It had some activities that need to happen, including a background check that a lot of people had some concerns about, but I think went quite well when we did it. This year we have, that process, that set of procedures was approved by the board last year. This year, we have found that we need to expand that and reword some things, create some forms, change it a little bit. I think the structure is similar. There's sort of a multi-step process. The first step for the directors is a bio and a statement of what you'd like to do with the club. That process is now closed. Tim got in today, but that's because he wasn't getting emails. And so I think at this present time, we have 16 people in the nominating pool. Each of the members of the committee will then review those statements and backgrounds and discuss it on Monday. Actually, there's a call scheduled on Monday. And at which point we will sort of rank people, if you will. I don't know how to say it, but there may be reasons why some are appropriate and some aren't. But for the most case, I think most people will be asked to complete a application and sign off on a basically just saying they'll do the background check and all that. And we will go through that process, do the background check, and then eventually in December, select a set of names that will then be handed over to the board to review. And the selected names by the board ultimately has that say, will then send those out to be voted on by the membership, being around 2,400 people. This year, in addition to the board of directors, we were asked to get involved in the process of selecting the new president. And that process is similar in a lot of ways, with one exception, and the exception is that the board of directors chooses the president. It does not go out to the public, to the general membership for voting. It'll be handled by the board itself. But the process is very similar. Statements, bio, background check, etc. And then those names will be turned over to the board to make their decision out of that pool. So we're going to document some additional process, include some forms that we've created to make the process a little easier. I think some people saw the announcement on the presidential candidate went out a couple of days ago. We actually got some nice feedback about that. People thought that was a nice way to do it and pretty informative. These things are all kind of new to the process, but I think we're pretty excited. We've got a good variety of folks that are asking to be on the board. Now, we haven't seen anything on the president's selection yet, but I'm sure we will. So, and I can answer questions. I think it's going pretty well. We will be done in basically December because it needs to be voted on, and then they'll make the vote aware at the annual meeting in January. So, Lynn, do you want to add anything to that?
Oh, Lynn, you have to unmute.
Sorry. I've got two computers, an iPad. I forget which one has a mouse and which one has the touchpad. So, you know, hey, Don, I want to just give a shout out to Don because he has been incredibly helpful in crafting a lot of this information. So, you know, we had some rough details first year, second year. We refined it with the questionnaire. That's super important because I think the questionnaire, this is one of the things that I instituted, was making sure that every board member actually had to read the bylaws and answer questions about the bylaws. And Dawn has been super great in helping craft those questions and recrafting them. So we've kind of changed them up each year. And also just the documents in general in terms of information, conveying the information, the timeline, crafting the questionnaires. And so it's a big job. And the good news is we're pretty much done before January, but it is a pretty important job. And with the added aspect of working with whoever would like to run for the president is also an add-on this year. But I have to say, Dawn has been so great in crafting a lot of this, and it's so important what we're doing, the nomination committee, in terms of really refining the nomination process. I really feel good about it, and I think it's really, before it was kind of not very well defined. So I think that we're doing a really important thing for the club, and so I just feel really good about that effort. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you for the feedback and thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think the process is pretty solid. I think it's very transparent, and I think we'll see a nice outcome. I mean, we're getting a lot of participation, so that's a good thing. And this is a tough time to be trying to get people to participate. Just really is. So anyway, that's it at my end. And Megan, I'm in Freddie Harbor as well. So it's a beautiful place to be.
Thank you, Lynn and Don. Thank you for your dedication and all the hard work that you do for the club. I don't think a lot of people really realize that these are all volunteer positions, and sometimes these are extremely significant part-time jobs, and some of them almost turn into full-time jobs in addition to whatever work they're doing to make a living. So it really takes a lot of work and dedication, and I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Our next presenter is Juard van Dijkhorst. Juard, welcome.
How's it all? I'm a Portland-based digital fundraiser by day, and then a trainee in archaeology and anti-poaching interdiction. Just one of the things that's become apparent as the current situation goes on is that it's going to be a while yet before we can break bread with each other or share a wee dram with the Scottish stuff. So we've been looking at more digital touch points. How do we better utilize the platforms that we've built out? So, for example, the beautiful website Megan led the charge on. I've just started helping with the newsletter, and then kind of looking at ways we can incorporate cross-chapter communication and internal resources and outside resources. So, for example, there's Airbnb online experiences with wine-focused archaeologists in Italy. I've done ones with shark scientists who are also club members in South Africa. Let's see, some group activities. So we're going to be, in lieu of our luncheon, we'll be doing a virtual happy hour and meeting, kind of looking at how we do the election and the voting process for officers as well. That's going to be an interesting change of pace. And then just looking at ways we can pull in other aligned groups as well. So for example, in Oregon, we have the Oregon Archaeological Society, which offers a 6-week basic archaeology training for very minimal cost. How do we kind of share some of what the Explorers Club has been doing with those people? How do we bring in some of their expertise, some viewing recommendations, etc. I think as someone who's just getting started in some of these endeavors, having members share some of their advice and how-tos will be interesting. So if anyone has any ideas or interest in kind of cross-chapter resource sharing or talking email communication, I'm very happy to look at that as well. So yeah, we've just started on that. We'll be doing a revised welcome series. So those of you in the email world, that's something I love to discuss. That's me.
Thank you, Juard. Now, last but not least, we have chapter chair, John All. John is a global explorer and geoscientist. He specializes in climate change research in remote locations. He's authored a book, Icefall: Adventures at the Wild Edges of Our Changing, Dangerous Planet. He's done extensive work in Peru and Nepal, and he's led expeditions on 5 continents to extreme locations. John, good to see you again. Welcome to Chapter Connect.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and happy I made it here. So one thing I wanted to follow up on what Juard said before I do my presentation. First of all, I really appreciate Juard sort of stepped up. He's working on his membership application. So one of the things I try to do with this Chapter Connect is we've got a student member, someone working on an application, members, fellows. I'm a lifetime fellow. So really tried to run the gambit of different types of membership in the club to show that, you know, it's vibrant and we pull in a lot of different types of people. The other thing that I wanted to comment on that Juard had mentioned was in terms of voting this year, because we won't have a sit down meeting, voting for chapter officers is going to become a lot more interesting issue than it has been in the past. So what we're doing this year is we're going to send out a digital call for officers. In 2 weeks, we're going to have a virtual happy hour where we can discuss the officers and see if there's any more nominations. And then we'll have a 2-week period for voting, and we'll send out an online ballot and so forth. And so we're going to have to do it all online this year because of COVID. And so it's going to create a whole different set of challenges, I think. But the important thing is finding a way to work through this. And so I really appreciate Juard, Megan's work with the web page and everything. The ways in which we're trying to move forward is, again, as long as we all work together, we can do a lot of great things. So really appreciate everyone's help. So now we'll try and see if I can share my screen. Lynn's made me a little nervous here. Let's see. So, do you guys see just the one page?
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay. So I'm basically going to be talking about Mount Everest and the work I was doing there. I've been kind of ongoing work. First of all, the important thing about Mount Everest and Nepal in general, is that Nepal is between China and India. And so the Nepalis say they're between the hammer and the anvil. And you've got a lot of political issues that cross the border and have really helped fuel a civil war that raged in Nepal for several years that I'm going to talk about. In terms of Mount Everest itself, the yellow line that kind of cuts across Mount Everest and goes down to Lhotse, you can see in the bottom, that's the international border between Nepal and Tibet. And I've worked both on that north side in Tibet as well as on the south side. And again, so when we talk about India and China and these border issues, Mount Everest is one of the places where you really see that come to fruition. In terms of the local people around Mount Everest, the Sherpa are the local people, and they work both in agriculture as well as with tourism. And basically, for the most part, they're going to be working in the low areas, doing agriculture in the winter and for a lot of the year. And then in the summer, they move up into the mountains around Mount Everest for grazing and other sorts of things. And then, of course, serving the tourism industry for a few dollars a day. They're carrying sometimes over 100 pounds up high mountains. And so I've worked there for over 10 years with the US AID, Fulbright Foundation, and other groups. And the thing that's most striking about Nepal that people don't really realize is it's one of the 10 poorest countries on earth. The average income or the GDP per person is less than $1,000 a year. And I've worked all over Africa, Central America, the Amazon, and this is the only country on earth I've ever been where they had a working water wheel to grind the wheat and other grains that they produced. So, this is 300-year-old technology that is state of the art in parts of Nepal. So very, very poor country. And that drives a lot of the social impacts of climate change and environmental change. So what is my part? Again, I've worked there for about 10 years collecting data throughout the area. And let me just show you this little video.
Well, I'm pretty low. I fell through that hole. Thankfully, I didn't keep falling that way. I got trapped here instead. For this ledge, my arm I can't use. I have to somehow climb out that way. Oh, I can't go that way at all. I gotta stop on this ledge. Oh. Oh. How do I get back up there though? Oh. I'm trying. I fell through that hole. That way, I didn't fall down, thankfully. My right arm is seizing up. I can't use it anymore. I'm gonna try and stem above that, get through that, try and head that way. Hopefully I can escape. Doesn't look easy. That's my hole I fell through. That's my path. I'm gonna try. Doesn't look easy, but that's all I can do. I don't have a right arm. Oh, so I can't get out this way. It's too soft. I can't talk because I have a broken rib, I think. Or my chest is filled with blood or something. So I fell all the way down there. I've crawled out through here. See, I can't get out that way. So I'm gonna have to crawl through there. Try and climb up, out through this thing. Hopefully I can get out.
So I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Unfortunately, it just continued on for about 4 hours, but you might ask yourself, what is he doing in the bottom of that hole? And unfortunately, it's not an exaggeration to say that I was there because of the Nepal Civil War. A little background on that Civil War. For most of this century, Nepal was ruled by a monarchy. And in 1996, the Maoist party, Communist Party, began the insurgency. At least 13,000 died. That's kind of the official number. Most numbers place it over 20,000 or even 25,000 that have died. And so the Maoists were supported, at least nominally, by the Chinese, whereas the main national government in Nepal is supported by India. And what had happened is since 2001, there was a ceasefire, but there still was an active kind of conflict going on. And I had come to the country because the lack of the government personnel in a lot of the rural areas meant that there was a huge natural resource impacts on the national parks, as well as climate change impacts that weren't being able to be studied. And so I went in with the Fulbright Foundation, which is a U.S. State Department initiative to help train. And so I went to the Tribhuvan University to help train students. And with the Maoist insurgency, they found a lot of support up in the mountains because, again, the Sherpa are, for the most part, they don't have access to roads, to medicine, to schools, to most of the other things that the lower land population does. Again, it's Buddhist versus Hindu, it's highland versus lowland, it's Tibetan ethnicity versus Indian ethnicity. So a lot of different conflicts going on there. And so I'd come up to Mount Everest in order to study water resources. And so this is Mount Everest Base Camp. And we got up there, and what we wanted to do was take snow samples along this valley, which is the Western Coombe, and kind of to back up a couple steps. So there's the Khumbu ice fall, and then on top of that broken mass of ice is this flat valley. And so we were going to collect samples across this flat valley, collect samples of snow, and then to your right, there that face of snow that goes up on the kind of the left mountain is Mount Everest and the right mountain is Mount Lhotse. So we were going to sample snow up Mount Everest and Mount Lhotse. And the reason we were doing that is we wanted to look at the impact of how climate change is affecting water resources, because the Mount Everest region provides water for 2 billion people. So almost a third of the population of the Earth is dependent on what comes out of the Himalayas. And so this next pictures come from work I've done in Peru, but they're just easier to understand. So you can see how as the glaciers are melting on that left-hand side, they're slowly melting over time from 2001, 2007, 2012. And what that means is that as those glaciers disappear, the graph on the right shows how the blue line, you have an increase in water for a little while from 1 to 2, but then from 3 to 4, you have a sharp decrease in the water as the glaciers disappear. So number 2, as the glaciers are melting, they give us extra water. And then in number 3 and 4, we have less water overall, far less than we did 10 years ago or whatever. Right now, most of the world is in stage 2, heading into stage 3. And so what that means is there's extra water. There's more water than should exist because it's glacier water. It's 10,000-year-old or 50,000-year-old water that's melting out. And so society is adapting to higher water flows in Peru, in the Andes, in India than they're going to see in the future. And so what I was doing was we were collecting dust to look at how dust on snow is affecting glacial melt. And so you can see clean snow, dirty snow, slight changes in the amount of dirt makes snow heat up. And so we were looking at things like how something like a mine, so this is a strip mine. There's the strip mine up in the left corner in the right corner. On the left corner is the town of Waraz. So by looking at how towns and mines affect the amount of snow, here we are going to collect samples. And by collecting samples around the world, 10,000 feet up to 20,000 feet, and even the summit of Mount Everest, across different mountain ranges and across locations on the mountain, we can collect, let me zip through a little bit here, the amount of dust that's in the snow samples. And so by collecting that across the world, we begin creating footprints of how much dust is in the mountains, how much is coming from India, how much is coming from China. And so you can see different days of the year, how that affects. From March to April, what's happening there is that they begin burning their crop residues as they prepare the fields for the next year. So we can look at how agricultural practices affects the amount of dust that's on snow. And so that's what I was doing there and what I continue doing in my work. By taking those dust samples, we can look at how it affects the temperature. So each of these lines is a different sample run through a special instrument we created. And so you can see at the high end, those very dark samples in April, they're raising the temperature 10 degrees Celsius. So a massive increase in temperature for snow samples. And again, that's going to hasten the melting of glaciers. And when we look at areas, so the red areas are near the mines and the blue areas are away from the mines and the cities. And so you can see over the years, for each of these, the blue areas, there's less melting that goes on in the glaciers than there is in the red areas. And again, that's driven by the dust more than climate. So kind of moving through this fairly quickly, but that's why I was there. And so what happened was, again, we were there at the ice fall. We wanted to move through the ice fall to collect our samples. You can see it's just an incredibly difficult area to climb. We held a puja, and at the puja, what you normally do is you essentially are asking the mountain not to kill you, asking for the blessing of the mountain. Unfortunately, it didn't work that year. As you can see, this is a collapse of the snow onto the route. And most of the people in this picture ended up dying in that. Again, my team was right in the middle of the avalanche. One of the guys on my team took this picture back. And what had happened is that ladder had fallen. And so because the ladder fell, all of these people were trapped as they put it back up when that ice fall occurred. And so 16 people ended up dying. And after everyone was rescued, that could be, not everyone was able to be. On the left is Ashman. He was a friend of mine who died in the accident. He left behind a 9-month-old daughter. And afterwards, we were all trying to figure out what to do. It's like we'd had this massive tragedy. Some people wanted to climb. We had these big discussions. And what happened was the Civil War reared its head. And so the Maoists came and said that unless we gave all of the money that we had raised for the families of the climbers who had been killed, the Sherpa who had been killed, they would beat people up and wouldn't allow anyone to climb. And so there were several months. This is the Minister of Tourism. That's why they have the microphones there. He came up to try and deal with the situation. It didn't work. And so eventually the Maoists just closed the mountain, so they would beat up anybody who tried to climb, break their legs. And after they began beating up some people, everyone had to leave. And so, we were trying to do science, but also the Civil War had driven science away from Mount Everest. And so that was why I ended up near Annapurna on this mountain, Himlung, which is where I fell. At this point, because some of my Sherpa team had died, everyone was traumatized. We were down to 3 people. And so I was up at 20,000 feet alone to collect samples. And this was my tent right before I fell into the crevasse. And again, I was able to fight my way out. You saw on that video, that's part of being an explorer, is you have to be able to deal with adversity. And I had to spend the night with 15 broken bones in my tent before I was helicoptered out the next day. And spent a lot of time in the hospital. Like I said, broke 15 bones. I had internal bleeding and a lot of other things. But I climbed out and I survived because I wanted to see my mom. This is her smile to how I got out of that crevasse. And it's the different things that can drive you as an explorer, the science, but it also is those family relationships you have. And once I got out, I kind of got in the newspaper, CNN all over the world, really, and allowed me to write a book and do some other things. But the key is that fame allowed me to pull back and get more people interested in the research that I was doing. So again, going back to Nepal, you can see the solar panel on my back as we collect data. And working with the local students, again, that was what I had come there for and why I keep going back. So these are Nepali graduate students, because at the end of the day, they're the next generation. And when we talk about what we want to see from the Explorers Club, what we want our grants program doing, the people we want to attract, it is that next generation, because they're the ones who are going to have to fight through the dangers of crevasses and blizzards and avalanches and snakes and the jungles and all those different things. So kind of finding ways to inspire and encourage that next generation to get out there and do research, I think is the most critical thing we can do. So sorry I kind of rushed through that, but I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what I've been doing. So.
Wow, what an incredible story of survival. It's amazing that you got out of that. I can't even imagine having to climb through that with all the broken bones. Well, right now I invite all of our participants to unmute themselves. And Anne, I'm sure you have a lot of questions from our viewing audience.
We do. We absolutely do. John, that was just an incredible presentation that you made. And we're so glad that you're safe and sound and here with us tonight. So thank you. Thank you for pulling this all together for everyone, and quite incredible. So the first question I have is from Jenny, and Jenny is asking this for Erden. Given that plastic production is estimated at some 390 million metric tons a year, not just for packaging, but also textiles, medicine, transportation, electronics, construction, how do we address the waste from the source? It is our entire mode of existence we have to change on the planet. How do we go about doing that? We never said it was going to be easy.
No. And I don't have all the answers either. I am taking part in addressing parts of the puzzle. I think the challenge remains that we have to go after all these R words that we keep hearing: reduce, reuse, recycle. Recycling is not the answer here. We have to reduce our consumption. We have to find substitute materials that can be more friendly. We need to be able to control where the items that we use end up, so they don't end up in the water, they don't end up in the landfills. So finding alternate uses and just overall reducing consumption is a key. The other aspect is how we approach the plastics altogether. So we have been getting used to the idea of production ending up in a landfill type of business model. So cradle to cradle instead of cradle to grave approach is going to be key here. If we can figure out how we manufacture things so that they can be taken apart and the items reused, we will have a huge leap going forward. So car manufacturers are taking steps in that direction, as an example, where the components of a car can be taken apart and these components can be actually recycled and put into the materials can be reused, basically. Again, I don't have all the answers, but these are the kinds of ideas that are out there.
I know it's been difficult times with COVID, and we seem to have been going on the right track. And then when COVID hit, there are a lot more plastics that have come into play recently. And that's, it's an unfortunate situation, but I think hopefully in the near future, we'll be back on track with a different administration and move forward productively, all of us. So Trevor, David is asking what you're doing, but I know you're always doing something fascinating and amazing. Can you tell us a little about what you've done in the past and what you have planned for
Thanks,
the future?
Ann. So yeah, other than my humble volunteer work, I have been going on expedition to Siberia for the past with my project partner, Dr. Kaspari, on the oldest Scythian tomb ever found. And these were ancient horseback warrior nomads. Just had an article just a few weeks ago in National Geographic with some of my photos. I'll just give
Can
you a
you tell
little
us which issue that was so everybody can go out and read it?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen so you can see. It was a digital article entitled Ancient Empire Collapse Seen in Violent Injuries in Nomad Graveyard. So here you can see one of my photos with an arrow that was lodged in the skull of a young man. You can see our dig site in October was a little bit icy as we were unearthing over 90 skeletons. Here you can see some of the arrowheads that we found lodged in the bodies. And it was a really, it's kind of, this was the shaman ceremony that we had bless our dig. Actually reminded me when John was talking about sort of a local indigenous blessing of the expedition. But that is to say, we've continued to do analysis and the first DNA on some of these ancient nomad remains. And it's been exciting, although 2 days ago, unfortunately got reports that some of our camp has been kind of ravaged by local bandits. They stole some of our camp and were really worried about the tomb being vulnerable. And so we plan on going back. Some of our Russian teammates were there, and it's tricky to get into Russia now. At the moment, I'm assisting Lynn with some of her media work at the Pacific Islands Research Institute. We hope to have a website live. Yes, I think that I got from Erden about joining our expedition in Siberia. We would love to have more members come and join us. There are a few obstacles to coming to Siberia, one of which is obtaining a tick-borne encephalitis shot. So if you want to Google how, there's a very particular type of Siberian tick-borne encephalitis that you do not want to get. And unfortunately, it's not FDA approved. So you typically need a 3-cycle shot somewhere in a European country. So feel free to reach out to me about Siberian expeditions or Explorers Club grants. My email is trevorwallace@explorers.org. Don't want to take up too much more time and get to everybody else's questions.
Thanks so much, Trevor. Megan, you have the opportunity of a lifetime to do what you're doing. It's amazing work. Can you tell everybody and go a little bit more into depth about maybe what your favorite expedition was or what you most enjoy?
Sure, I'm happy to share some more about that. The superlatives are so difficult. I don't know if the rest of our Explorer community feels that, but like, what is the coolest? And I think that changes every time. Absolutely every time that we go into the field. I trained as an ecologist, as a biologist. So certainly when I got interested in the deep sea, it was first through the gateway that a lot of people have of those like fantastic and bizarre animals that make a living on the seafloor. But I would say that some of my favorite expeditions have now been just seeing some of the incredible landscapes on the seafloor, whether that's hydrothermal vents, brine pools. There are lakes under the ocean, y'all. If that is news to you, like, we can talk about brine pools all day long. These are salt tectonics, which are dried out, very large segments of salt, typically found in the Gulf of Mexico, and then intruded by water through pressures and actions on the seafloor that can then create hyper saline, super saline water that runs like rivers, sits like lakes underneath the ocean on the seafloor. And gotta bring back the biology, there's chemosynthetic life, animals that make a living off of the chemicals in the earth that are creating these incredible habitats. So those are some favorites. I still love, for the archaeologists in the room, I love the fact that we are discovering certainly parts of our heritage, maritime heritage on the seafloor. It's 70% of the planet. So to think that it's not 70% of the history of the planet is pretty wild. But also just for the time scale, we often encounter coral colonies that are 500, 1,000, 2,000. There are some corals that are up to 4,000 years old. That is an individual organism that's 4,000 years old. So like when that settled on a rock on the seafloor, the Babylonians were like inventing the base 60 math system. We divided a circle into 360 parts for the first time. Humans had invented glass, and this single animal has been growing down there in the dark, in the depths, and filtering our oceans out for that time. So I could talk expeditions forever, as long as you'd like, but I'd also encourage everybody to check out nautiluslive.org. All of our history of sightings are there. And if you don't know what you're looking for, you can just jump into the gallery and like click a year or click a topic and see something really spectacular that's, existing right alongside us, but maybe a little bit out of sight, out of mind for most folks.
It's actually thrilling to hear about corals that have been around for 4,000 years, and we'd love for them to be alive for the next 4,000 years again. So everybody has to do their best part. We have one other question about that for Erden, and that is, has anyone considered the lifespan of items created by 3D copiers? Pollution risks of using 3D copiers for everything.
I don't have any idea about the 3D copiers and their products and how long they last. I'm guessing it would depend on the resin used or the bond in the production process. I am at a loss. I don't have any idea.
Yeah, typically it's PLA plastic for the lower level prints, and then you might get like SLS or then some of the other resins.
So here's another question for you. This is from Jenny. Since the Earth has undergone various periods of glaciation over billions of years, is it possible that fluctuations in solar radiation are at the core of the melting of glaciers? How much can we attribute the rapid melting of glaciers due to the Industrial Revolution of the past century? I think that's for you, John.
So yeah, we get questions like this a lot, and it all comes down to physics. Basically, we can measure how much the solar radiation is an influx onto the Earth is affecting its temperature, and we can model that. We can model how much solar flares would affect it. We can model how much the end of the ice age and the Milankovitch cycles affect it. The great thing about, and the thing that gets really lost in the climate change debate, is it's all physics. All you have to do is calculate the numbers, and basically, even if you take into account solar variation, changes in Milankovitch cycles, everything else, there's a big missing chunk of energy you have to account for. And if you take the amount of carbon dioxide which is in the air, which again, physically, we know what impact it has to have, again, it fills that void perfectly. So from a physics standpoint, no, the answer is no. Solar variability is not affecting climate change. Climate change is driven by taking stored carbon, and the Earth has a lot of mechanisms with which it uses to store carbon in the ocean floor, in the soils, and other things. And so what humans are doing is basically taking that natural process and disrupting it, pulling the carbon back out of storage and putting it into the atmosphere. And that, again, physics dictates it has to have an impact. And that impact is going to lead to changes around the world. And that's what we see in the glaciers disappearing, larger hurricanes, greater floods, greater droughts, more tropical diseases spreading around the world, insects, fires. Again, what you're doing is you're taking energy from the earth and adding it to the atmosphere. And so it has to have an impact. It's just simple physics. And unfortunately, no, the sun can't account for that. It has to be a source of carbon dioxide.
Thank you
May I say something?
Sure.
And yeah, I unfortunately have to leave. I'm having 2 buildings tented for termites. Really exciting. So I have to go meet the termite guy. So
I just went through that myself, actually, with our home.
So anyway, it was terrific to see all of you, truly. And thanks everyone for participating. And unless there's any outstanding questions for me, I'm going to sign off because I need to go.
Okay, and Lynn, I'll be in touch with you. I'll be in touch with you regarding our Chapter Connect so you can give your presentation.
Okay, and I'll see Trevor in the meantime. He can help me figure it out. Thank you so much. Aloha, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
So, Juard, you're a relatively new member of the club. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing and what you look forward to doing in the near future?
So I'm actually not yet a voted in member or approved member. That's definitely an aspiration. What I've been doing is did a 6-week course in archaeology at the beginning of the year, then had some travels planned. I was down in Mexico and then the border closed, so I'm back here. Also looking at anti-poaching interdictions, so groups in Southern Africa specifically, like the Battleiers that do aerial photography for disappearing habitats and then boots on the ground. So I'm still very much at the top of the funnel, that is. I made my first pilgrimage to the club last March, and hoping to use some of the skills I've had from less exciting vocations than you all to kind of boost club interactivity. So I know that's a topic that gets asked about a fair amount on the Instagram posts and on the Facebook posts. So I just encourage people to get involved with their local chapters. A lot of the local chapters have Facebook groups of their own. I've got a friend out in Boston. I've been bugging him to get in on that. Also, if your local chapter has an email list, that's great to join. I think this is now a time where we're not able to connect in person, but there is a desire from a lot of people that are not able to go on expeditions right now to connect and share their skills. So this is I think a good time to start building relationships with other members of the club and getting to know them, getting to hear their stories, and hopefully learning from their insights.
This is the most appropriate forum to do that. And I think that from what you just said, there are going to be a lot of members that will reach out to you, and hopefully you can join together with them and meet a lot of new people. So thank you so much for being with us. And I think that pretty much concludes the questions that we have. Tim?
Okay, well, that's great. I want to thank everyone. Great presentations. I really enjoyed it. And I'm sure our audience did as well. And for next week, we're to be announced. Let's just put it that way. We don't have anything definite, but we are actively working on getting something together for next week. So we'll keep you informed as time goes by. Anne, thank you so much for putting this together. And Kevin, thank you for all the work you do on technical stuff.
So I just wanted to say thank you to Juard and John, Megan, Trevor, and Don for being with us today. And I wanted to remind everybody to tune in Monday evening.
Don't forget Erden.
I wouldn't forget Erden. Erden's right there.
It's all cool.
Erden's amazing. So Erden, thank you again. So Monday night, please join us an hour earlier because our presenter is going to be talking from Spain. So she's willing to stay up till about 1:30, but that's about it. The topic is Exploration Beyond Borders, Humboldt and his ties with France. And our speaker is Sandra Reebach. So I hope you'll be able to tune in for a really interesting evening. And John, you put together an incredible program with your chapter. You're amazing people. We can't thank you enough for taking the time out and putting this all together. One quick last question. You came in a little bit late because you are a public defender, we were told?
Yes, ma'am. During COVID, because we can't do expeditions, so I also am a lawyer, so a trial attorney. So I've taken work as an attorney while I wait for the COVID to run its course and so that we can get back to normal.
we were just wondering how you manage to fit in all the things that you do. And it's pretty incredible.
Well, I'm
So
5
again-
minutes late, so I fit it in pretty well, but but I
You
want
did
to
great.
thank Juard and Megan and Erden and Don and Trevor. Again, was running around, and I really appreciate y'all being on time and stepping up when we had to put this together. So thank you.
Thank you all, and keep us in touch with what's going on Erden. Specifically, keep us in touch with what's going on with you and Megan. Follow for all the viewers out there, follow their Facebook pages and Instagrams, and we're going to keep our eyes on you. Just stay well, stay healthy, and be safe.
I just have to put
our audience for tuning in every week. We really appreciate it. We get a great viewership, and I hope it will continue to increase.
So just to let you know, you were someone already just wrote in, Rod, who said, as a new member of tech, I'm looking forward to getting involved with the local chapters. So certainly what you just said has influence on people, and what all of you added this evening is really important to get the message out to the rest of the membership of the club. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
See you Monday, everybody.